righty.
Okay, you're live.
Thank you. If all committee members are present, may I get a motion to suspend rules relating to meeting in person and voting in person?
Motion to suspend the rules that require meeting in person and voting in person.
I have a
Second.
motion, and I have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Can I get a motion for approval of our previous meeting minutes?
I move to approve the previous meeting minutes.
The motion
Second.
and second. All in favor?
Aye.
We have two pieces before us. The first one is, oh, wait a minute. Wrong one. 17. Ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service through the Office of the Purchasing Agent to purchase miscellaneous supplies, services, repair parts, and labor for machinery and equipment used by motor equipment of the city for a period of 1 year, authorizing payment therefore and declaring an emergency. So who is speaking to this, Shelley or?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I am. Hello, thank you, committee members. This is similar to our no bid ordinance that we bring to you. We brought one at the end of last year. We brought a cleanup to you in May, and unfortunately, it did not include some cleanup for motor equipment. So this is an additional piece that we're bringing to you that will allow our motor equipment division to go out and procure the required parts that they need in order to maintain and fix the city's fleet without having to get quotes and competition on every single purchase. So this is an area where if we had to go through the procurement process every time we wanted to fix a vehicle, it would be very burdensome and time consuming. We need the motor equipment division to be able to go to vendors that are on this list and procure what they need in order to fix the city's fleet without having to go through the requisition process. So this will allow them to be able to do that. And I apologize, as we should have had this on the May one that fixed the no bid, but we just did not get it cleaned up, unfortunately, due to communication between us and the division. So I will be happy to take any questions that you guys have in regards to this piece.
Thank you, Shelley. I have a quick question before I open to committee members. The amount is 2.8 million we're talking about here. So as I look through this list, because of COVID, and we've had so many businesses that have shut down and gone through a lot of hard times right now, is every businesses on this list, are they still open and functioning and doing business? Because I know there's quite a few small business owners on here. Wondering, have we went back around to make sure that a lot of them are still in business?
The list was given to me by Scott Robinette, who is our motor equipment manager. So he really would be the expert, but the list was just given to me within the last week. So I'm assuming that he would include, even if there was businesses that were maybe closed for a time, but hopefully will be reopening, he's included those in the list. But these are all the possible vendors that he can foresee having to procure goods, services through the end of the year that are inclusive on this list.
Okay, thank you. Questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? Councilman Freeman?
Yes, I'm just curious, Shelley, how does somebody go about getting on this list, or is this just a list of folks that we've kind of always done business with?
I am really, no, that is not the case. I'm pushing motor equipment, I'm pushing purchasing, as are the other divisions, on trying to be more inclusive of our small, local, diverse businesses in the city of Akron. So for example, we have a certified diverse business called Room 38 over off of Waterloo Road that they started doing body shop repairs. So I've gotten in touch with Scott Robinette, who oversees motor equipment, and I'm like, we need to get them added as a vendor. There is a vendor registration form that is on the city's website that I encourage all vendors to fill out and submit to the purchasing department so that we are aware that you are interested in doing business with the city of Akron. But we're also being very proactive in reaching out to vendors located within the city, diverse vendors, to try and also get them inclusive of some of our spend. We don't want to just use the same vendors because that's who we've always used. So we are making a big push at that. And Scott Robinet, who works for Chris Luddle, is very receptive of that and has made an effort to include different businesses on this list so that he can spread the city spend around to different businesses.
Yeah, I was just wondering if he had contacted a network amongst minority communities, because a lot of them might not be aware, hey, there's opportunity out here. So if that's taking place, I think we'd all be agreed, that's a good way to achieve some of the things that we're trying to accomplish. Thanks.
Absolutely. And when we're going to outreach events, we're always looking for new vendors that can fill a void or be in addition to what we already, do here at the city of Akron. So this list is inclusive of all of those vendors that we can potentially use.
Any other questions from any other council members? I have one question on here, Shelley. There's this one called emergency fuel, Porch Petroleum. What kind of fuel are we talking about? That's a lot of money. I'm just trying to figure out, because I see there's quite a few fuel ones on here.
I could get an answer and get back to you. I don't know if it's our regular motor equipment fuel or if it's some other type of fuel. I don't know if Chris, if you would be able to speak to that.
That would be for our utilities, like for our diesel generators. If we need emergency fuel, if we have to call in a tanker for like WRF or for water supply, so we would bring in emergency fuel. So we would only use these quantities, like on that case, if there was an emergency. So that doesn't mean we're going to spend $250,000 this year in emergency fuel. But if you remember a few months back, First Energy they had a storm come down and we lost power at the plant. We had to procure some emergency fuel to keep our tanks full down at WRF. So that's what this is for.
Okay, all right, thank you. Are there any further questions? If not, can I get a motion for suspension of the rules?
I'll make a
I'll make that
motion for
motion. Suspension of the rules.
Okay, we have a motion for suspension of rules. Can we get a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, ayes have it. Our next and last piece, ordinance authorizing the Director of Service to enter into a contract without the formality of advertising for bids with River Reach Construction for the emergency construction of riverbank stabilization at the city's water reclamation facility and declaring an emergency. Mr. Leto?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. River Reach, they recently did some work for us out in Ellet and restoring some of the ditch from Triplet all the way north through Goodyear. So we had them come down and look at the outlet of WRF. We also had the contractors that are currently down at WRF working, and they gave us prices also. So this is one of probably 4 or 5 projects we started last year down on the Cauga River for restoration. So we applied for a permit through the Army Corps. And like I said, this is just one project that we'll be doing, and this is at the outlet of the plant. So there's erosion that's happening down there, and to stop it, we're doing plantings, which is some native plantings and some trees. And we are doing some rock stabilization down there, some bank stabilization. The other project that was recently completed, part of our river, is down by the dog park. So if you have an opportunity to go down there, you'll see that project. It came out real well. There's another project at the outlet of Rack 40 that will be going on. That's not part of this legislation, but those are just some of the projects. And then the other project will be at the end of the tunnel at the TDS. That will be starting later this year too. So this is just something more preventative maintenance to the river, but there is some erosion going on down there, and this will stop it.
Okay, all righty, thank you. Any questions from committee members? Councilman Swartzky?
Yeah, obviously this project is needed. It can't be debated. I just wanted to say that I appreciate the fact that you mentioned you're going to be using native plants. The more that we can integrate that into all that the city does, the use of native plants, it really puts us a lot more in harmony with the ecosystem here and helps to protect our investments that we have, both everything from these kind of projects to other things. So good work, Chris. Yeah.
All right, any questions, other questions from committee members? Any questions from council members? Okay, can I get a motion for suspension of the rules?
I'll make the motion for suspension of the rules.
We have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. We have nothing else coming before us for public service, so we are adjourned.
Thank you.
We have just about 3 minutes before our next committee meeting, which will be public safety. Those committee members are Kamer, Samples, Swirsky, Malik, and McKittrick. Ready when you are.
All right, thank you. All right, we're going to go ahead and move and call the public safety meeting to order. It seems like all members are present. First of all, we do need to make a motion and vote to suspend all council rules that require in-person meetings and in-person voting. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We did have a meeting last week. Obviously, I was absent, so we had Councilwoman Samples. Can I get approval of those minute meetings, please?
So moved.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, thank you. So We have 3 new pieces in front of us today, and our first one is the ordinance authorizing the mayor to apply for funding from the 2020 Assistance to Firefighter COVID-19 Supplemental Grant administered through the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to provide funding for the costs associated with purchasing personal protective equipment in response to the coronavirus public health emergency, authorizing an agreement for the acceptance and expenditures of the grant funding consistent with the grant and declaring an emergency. And it looks like I have listed here Charlie Brown and District Chief O'Neill. Are they here with us? Yes, we have District Chief O'Neill. Go ahead, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, Mr. Chairman, thank you. Deputy Mayor Brown sends his apologies. He has another meeting he had to be at, so I'm here alone. So this is a grant through Homeland Security through FEMA. AFG is who we get a lot of our fire grants from yearly. We've been successful getting a lot of equipment through AFG over the years. They put out a supplemental grant opportunity strictly related to COVID and strictly for the use of purchasing PPE. It had to be stuff that was already purchased or in the purchasing queues, not for future purchases. So what that meant was it couldn't be used for stockpiling. It had to be used for things that we had already spent money on. So I filled out the application. The ordinance says for the mayor to apply for the funding. We've actually already applied and been awarded $59,320. So we need to accept the funding. I need to know that we can accept it. The cost to us is $5,932. There's a 10% match.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer any other questions. When I say PPE, it's all N95s, gowns, Tyvek suits, thermometers, anything that has to do with protection of our folks.
Thanks, Chief. That's pretty good. Committee members, do we have any questions? It does not look like we have any committee members with questions. Any council members on Zoom? No. So I guess you explained it pretty good. It kind of makes sense. With that, I'm going to go ahead and move forward and ask for someone to make the motions to suspend the rules. I have Councilman Swirsky.
I'll make that motion to suspend the rules.
All right, thank you, Councilman. I think Councilman McKittrick, you're going to second it? All right, thank you, sir. And all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And anybody opposed? All right, thank you. We'll move forward. Thank you, Chief. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we'll move on to our next piece. It's a resolution opposing and objecting to the renewal application of Andy's in the Park LLC, 1751 South Main Street, Akron, Ohio, 44301 for Class D5 and D6 liquor permits, 02-11120, now pending before the Division of Liquor Control and declaring emergency. Obviously, this is in my ward. I think all of us council members kind of understand when we have a bar, someone that serves liquor, sometimes we have fights and violence and shootings, and I'm sure I could go on and on. But I do have our city prosecutor, Gert Whelms, here, and hopefully she can explain any more that I haven't explained already, but I'm here to answer any questions too. Go ahead, Gert.
Thank you. Good afternoon, council members. This is a property that's located at 1751 South Main Street. It is on the corner of Palmetto and Main. It actually abuts with personal property of a residential neighborhood. So all these issues that are taking place are having a great deal of impact, not only on a residential neighborhood, but the surrounding businesses by this property. Andy's is open, as far as I can tell, 7 days a week. The issues that we are currently having are multiple discharge of firearms, felonious assaults, aggravated robbery, numerous assaults, numerous robberies, ample domestic violence, numerous liquor control violations, as well as possession of drugs, and then in this particular case, cocaine. So at this point, we are asking for this liquor permit renewal to be objected through a resolution of council. just to give you a little bit of background, this property has been in the hands of Mickey Parison for the last 5 years. Since basically that took place, we have been trying to work with Mr. Parison to get a little bit different business model to take place, and it hasn't happened. We've met multiple times with the liquor control with his particular permit, met multiple times with the property owner, trying to encourage a different business model there with absolutely no success. So going down this route, I don't want you to think we're starting here. It's just one of the opportunities that we see for this neighborhood and for surrounding businesses to actually take place.
No, thank you. I appreciate that. She summed it up very good. The only thing I'll add to that is she did say it was right up against residential properties. And I also have a church. If I had to throw out a guess, it's probably about maybe 50 yards from this location. So with that, I'll entertain any questions or comments from committee members. Okay. All right, we have Councilwoman Samples.
Thank you, Councilman Kamer. So you mentioned it was within 50 yards of a church. Gert, how were they able to obtain a liquor license being so close to the church?
There's a couple different liquor permits there, and they're more than likely just there was no objection from the church. I got to tell you, the biggest problem we're having, the church is even taking measures to chain off their property because of all the basically trash, broken glass, broken down cars that are left on their property. So it's happening all up and down the street, and we'll bring them in and try and get some cooperation, and then the same. It's the Family Dollar, they're parking there and trashing that entire Palmetto street and not cleaning up after their business or even maintaining a safe business environment.
Oh, okay. And lastly, I saw on the news early this morning that the governor has partnered with the Liquor Control Board for bars that have opened because they're not social distancing. So maybe that's another way we can look at these when we put in objections, because if they're doing all this, they're not social distancing. So
I agree with you.
Avenue you may want to look at to see if maybe that could help in this fight. So, okay, that's all I wanted. Thanks.
And I completely agree. If you know this location, it is a very small neighborhood bar. The last I remember, fire gave us the capacity and it was well under 100 people. And sometimes when you're watching just a crowd control issue, you can see more than 100 people pouring out of there on the officer's body worn camera.
No, that's good. Thanks for the question, Councilwoman. I see Councilman Swirsky, his hands up.
Yeah, just want to say I'm impressed with your outreach, your attempt to reform the situation, your persistence, your stick-to-itness, and I really salute Councilman Kamer and Prosecutor Williams. It's time. You're doing the right thing here.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate that. Let me see. Any other questions or comments? All right. With that, I would like to. I'll make the motion if that's okay. I'll make the motion to suspend the rules on this, please.
Second.
And I do have a second from Councilman Swirsky. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right, with that, we'll ask for passage this evening. Thank you. I appreciate that, colleagues. Our last piece in front of us is a resolution encouraging the passage of comprehensive legislation around the nation to require unions representing law enforcement officers to bear financial responsibility to local government employers in situations where that union has appealed the termination of an officer for improper use of force. The officer is returned to work through the union's appeal procedure, and the officer again engages in misconduct related to the use of force and declare an emergency. And I have on here that obviously the sponsor is Councilman Neal, and he'll obviously present. So let me see if he's on here. Is he on here, Councilman?
He is not. He actually called in and asked if he was unable to be here for this meeting, if the committee would be willing to take time.
Okay, so I guess probably no discussion since he's not here. So All right, I'll ask the committee if they want to take time.
Yeah.
Motion for time.
Second.
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second by Councilman McKittrick. All in favor?
Aye.
Nay?
Aye.
Hey, can you do a roll call?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think I may have heard a nay, but I'm not positive. And so if we could go through that would be great.
Sure.
Kamer,
Nay.
Samples,
Aye.
Swirsky,
Aye.
Malik,
Aye.
McKittrick.
You're muted, Councilman McKittrick.
Aye.
Thank you. Time passes.
All right, thank you. With that, we're adjourned. Thanks, everyone. I appreciate it.
Okay, we have just about 3 minutes before our next committee meeting, and that is Public Utilities and Green. Those committee members are Swirsky, Freeman, Connor, Samples, and McKittrick.
Sir, did you just say, okay, I don't know if we have everybody here yet.
It's not quite 2:30 yet. We have just a few more minutes.
Okay, yeah, okay.
Sarah, can you hear me? This is Yamini.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if we could just have Councilman Freeman and Councilwoman Samples connect to video. Those are the last two on the committee we're waiting for.
Okay. There's Councilman Freeman. Hey,
Ready when you are.
okay. So the first order of business is a motion to suspend all council rules that require in-person meeting and voting. Do I hear such a motion?
So move.
Okay, and a second
Second.
and a vote? Everybody agree?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Second order of business is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
Motion to
So
approve.
moved.
Okay.
Second.
And all agree?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. We have one ordinance before us. We have a special guest, Mr. Chris Little, Service Director, to talk about it, but let me read it in to the public record. It's an ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service or his designee, after publicly advertising for bids, to enter into a contract or contracts with UMS for fixed network advanced metering infrastructure with meter data management and customer information system integrated platform project and declaring an emergency. Okay, so Mr. Luddle, would you like to explain this for us? And I understand you have a PowerPoint.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Yes, with me today, I have two members of our project team, which our project team has quite a few members of the City of Akron staff, but Shelley Goodrich, our Deputy Finance Director, has been intimately involved with this project since she started with the city. I mean, she pretty much, probably one of the first meetings that I was with Shelley was we handed her 4 huge proposals and she took them home and started diving through them. And also with us today is Jeff Bernowski, our Bureau Manager. So Jeff and Shelley are with me. When we brought this to you, the current council members, all of you were not part of council, but we had a presentation last July to council about our failing water meters. We have 85,000 water meters out in our system, and they were put in over 15 years ago. And to simply put it, they're a drive-by system. So we have an employee that drives through the city, through our district every day, and this data is recorded and then downloaded. Well, these meters have been failing to the point where the batteries no longer they're well beyond their useful life. So like I said, Jeff brought this to me probably in 2016 and said, we have to start working on this. So this has been a very long process. We never anticipated having to propose this to you by Zoom, okay? We did have a piece of legislation last month where we secured our financing for this project at 1.18%. And we feel like now's the time to present this to you to lock in that financing over the 15-year loan. Now, we're not asking for a vote today. We have a PowerPoint. I'm sure there'll be very many questions by all of you that if you could submit them by email, we will get back to you, and then we would ask for a vote next Monday. So with that, Shelley's going to run the PowerPoint. If you do have questions, if we can hold them to the end, that would help. And we'll go through this as fast, or I think all of you, it was sent to all of you, but you can see it on the screen. So that's our first slide. Next. Okay, back in 2018, you could see we started this process. We had a presentation to the mayor, and we had a presentation to council in 2019. You could see that we accepted proposals. We went through them starting in August, and then we made a recommendation to award this to UMS right after the first of this year. And there again, we expected to bring this to you live, probably sometime in the spring, and that never happened because of COVID. Next. So our current system, real quick, it's a drive-by system. So the car drives by the house, it gathers the data, and then it's downloaded once it gets back, and then the bills are generated. And the problem with this system is, as you know, everybody says my water bill's so high. Well, water for an HCF is $2.73. Because of our consent decree, the sewer is $10.66. So an HCF of water is 748 gallons. And unfortunately, what happens sometimes, people are in between 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4. And I'm sure as council people, you've heard, why did my bill change by $26? Well, it's because you didn't get to the next number. So you didn't get from 3 to 4. You were barely at the top of 3. And then you ran one load of wash, and all of a sudden you're at 1 HCF, which, you know, one day after your billing, you're at $13.39. Well, then you use your normal water, and your bill between, let's say, March and April changed by $26. What this new system is going to do is it's going to integrate all these things. And let's go to the next slide. So what it'll do, it'll bundle all these things together, and UMS is going to manage this for us. So all the data will be held at one point.
I need to make sure my phone and that are working.
And what'll happen is we will get reads every hour, and it will bill in gallons instead of 748 gallons. So when you have a leak and you don't know it till the next billing cycle, that's why we see some of these drastic spikes in our bill. So we are going to upgrade with this system. We're going to upgrade all your information. As you can imagine, in the last 15 years, all the people that had landlines are gone mostly. We don't have good customer information. So we will integrate all your information into our GIS system. We will integrate all our information into our work order system, which is CityWorks. And also, you will be able to set up, personalize your account. So if you want to manage your account, you will be able to get alerts. So if you normally use 3 HCF, and you could set up a thing, if you ever hit 4, you'll get a text message or an email, whatever you choose. If you have usage on a 24-hour basis and we feel like it's excessive, like we know you can't be using that much water, we will send you a message. However you inquire about it. So if you want a text message, if you want an email, we'll send it to you, which will be invaluable to our customers to help manage their bills. Next slide. So the biggest takeaway is we do not anticipate any rate increase to the customer to pay for this. We did secure the loan, like I said, at 1.18%, and we will not start any of these loan payments for the next 3 years. Next slide. So the overall benefits, it's the customers has access to their data and more control of their usage, a more predictable monthly usage for the customer, enhanced customer self-service options, interactive customer alert options. Now we've piloted this system with some churches. We actually did not Chapel Hill Mall, but the other mall out west. And they experienced a couple of high bills, and they told us, we don't have leaks. We've checked everything. We put the new meter in, and within a month, within a couple of weeks, we found what was going on. We found between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m., their usage was extremely high. And guess what? Their irrigation system come on. There was a break in the line, and they used an enormous amount of water. So they're very thankful for that, and they fixed their system, and then there was back to their normal usage. So we can do budget billing. Customers can receive their bills in a more timely fashion, because what happens now, if the car drives by your house today, it downloads the information tomorrow, and then the bill is generated. It could be 45 or 50 days between cycles. Now you'll be able to manage that bill on a very timely manner. Next slide. So I'm not going to go through all these things, but these are just some of the things that are reoccurring payments, the ACH credit card payment, 24/7. You can monitor your usage if you set it up that way. And we also will still have our own call takers. We're not eliminating any jobs through this. We are going to keep our staff currently who we have. We will obviously not have to drive through the system. So that employee will be absorbed in the system, into our operation, because we haven't done a real good job with our commercial industrial meters as far as calibrating. So we are going to increase our service to our commercial and industrial customers. Next slide. So basically that's it. I know it's a lot of information. The three of us will take any questions you have now. But like I said, the one thing I want everybody to be very mindful is we're not anticipating any type of rate increase. Now you see the bottom line, it's 39 million. You know, yearly right now with all these failing meters, we spend about $600,000 a year in maintaining our current systems. The batteries are failing. The meters are failing. We have to get in and change them out. Obviously, when we upgrade this system, we'll have all brand new infrastructure. Also, our billing system, which is in Questa, they're requesting a $1.2 million upgrade right now, which we won't have to do. Now, that is baked into the total project, but those are just two examples that we won't have to do. So with that, Councilman Swirsky, we will take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Luddle, and as usual, very comprehensive, very detailed. Do I have questions from members of the committee? Any questions or?
I don't know if you can see that Councilman Freeman's hand is
Mr.
raised.
Freeman?
No, I can't see. Trying. Okay, now I could probably see better. Okay, Councilman Freeman, please.
Now, I just wanted to chime in and say, you know, this rate is, I want to say the rate will never be lower, although the way things are going, I don't know. But I mean, the rate is right now. And I've actually talked to folks from other municipalities that have a similar system, and it's really a game changer. I mean, each and every one of us have had instances. We had an instance here a year or two ago where a senior had, ended up with $1,000 water bill. And the system that Mr. Luddle's talking about, we could have seen unusual activity on his bill and could have maybe notified him within 2 days as opposed to 2 months. So I certainly hope that we move ahead with this. This is going to make a huge difference. Number one, the way the increments are built in. Number two, the rate that we're going to have, on financing this, and for our customers, I mean, just the idea there's some control of their water bill. There's some idea of when they're using, why they're using, any discrepancies they may think they have. I just really hope that, before we take our break here, that we can see something like this. We can move ahead with this. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. And, just to on that same note, when he said an elderly person, well, my parents are elderly. They don't have email. They don't have text messaging. Okay, so they will receive a phone call, but they could also designate me as their representative to get those alerts. So, as their son, those alerts can go to me and then I could take care of it for them. Right now, like you said, Mr. Freeman, it's a letter and it could be 45 days out.
Well, I hadn't even thought of that. Yeah, that's
and they have a basement bathroom, and that's where they could start running, and they don't go down there very often. So,
yeah. If someone has if they have like the hose bib, if they have the secondary line for watering the grass, filling the pool, is that a part of this system also?
There will be a new meter, but currently they receive 2 bills, and we're looking at that to be all integrated on 1 bill. We don't have that capability right now to incorporate that in 1 bill.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there other committee members who would like to ask a question or make a comment? Am I missing a hand? Mrs. Moby, I see did you have a question,
Yes.
Mrs. Moby? Okay.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Luddle, so this is going to cost us $39 million?
Yes, ma'am.
And this is going to be paid over 100 years or something? 15
yes,
years?
15 years, yes.
And the interest rate you're saying is 1.8%?
1.18, yes.
And what company are we going through to purchase this?
It's called UMS. They're currently working with Columbus to do their system. They've been awarded the project, but they have not started yet.
Now where are they? Are they connected with NLC, any of those programs that you're aware?
You know what? I will get back to you on that. I'm not sure. Shelley or Jeff, do you know that answer? National League of Cities? No. I think Jeff wrote it down. We will get back to you, Councilwoman Amobian.
And we're currently servicing what did you say, 85,000?
85,000, yeah, and that's our service area currently. So that's the townships that we serve, you know, Copley and Fairlawn and Bath and Mogador, part of Springfield, part of Hudson.
What I like is there's no increase in the rate for the resident, the customers at this point. Do you anticipate anything in 3 years, or you can't look down that far?
Well, not to this. I mean, obviously, we never, you know, regulations change, but no, we don't anticipate, not with this project will we raise rates, no.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I also see that Councilman McKittrick's hand is raised.
Oh, sorry. Okay, Kittrick.
No, my question was answered in regard to the bid meters. Thank you.
So I'm calling on myself. Mr. Ludell, it's a large amount of money. It's not going to be coming out of any increase to the taxpayers. But where is the money coming from? Was this money that was budgeted previously?
Well, obviously we have continuous operation. Like I said, 600,000 a year just to maintain our current system. So we have been looking to do this project. Enquesta itself, like I said, 1.2 million just to upgrade the current system. So over the life of this project, Enquesta, IT, I think, I'm not sure, I'll get you that number, but there's continuing upgrades to that system with Enquesta that obviously that are baked into the 39 million.
Okay, but it is a very low interest rate, as Mr. Freeman pointed out. Is that comparative? Mr. Ludell?
Yes, it's very low. Yes.
Yeah.
That's why, you know, we thought about, you know, the timing of this, but we're happy that you were able to get it in this week, Councilman Swirsky, and then hopefully we can vote on it next week before the break.
Right, and you had suggested a process of people could send you emails. I would like to see them too. I mean, maybe all the committee members can see if people have other questions in the responses. We'd like to see them, you know, and not just next Monday, but before then.
Absolutely. So I would
should
suggest sending everything to Sarah. If you all copy each other and you can see the same questions, and then we will get it back to Sarah.
Okay. I see that Councilman Malik would like to ask a question or comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for your presentation here today. I know that this has been a long process, and I know that it's been a very conscientious and thoughtful process. I'm really impressed by the degree to which this will allow us to improve our customer service. I know that, you know, something the mayor talks about a lot is that, you know, local government is in large ways a customer service business, and you know, these kinds of alerts and allowing people to track things, you know, really in a 21st century way is really something I'm looking forward to. I just had a small question. Relatedly, I know this isn't going to directly increase rates, but can we talk about what the status is on the rate review? And then also UMS, if UMS is going to be helping assist with the platform going forward, is there going to be like an annual payment to them, and what would that look like?
The first question, the rate analysis, we were a little bit delayed because of COVID, but they have sent us a couple things which we've reviewed. Right now, we are looking, we're reviewing the master meter customers on the sewer end, and we're going to be getting the rest of the data hopefully within 2 or 3 weeks. So The rate analysis is going very well. And it all hinges on the upgrades that needed to be made to the system. Okay, so I can't comment to if there is a rate increase needed or not. It depends on what we are going to do to the upgrades of the system. As far as the ongoing recurring services, I'm going to let Shelley answer that one.
Yes, there is a charge for ongoing recurring services, and I think Jeff can jump into. But the wonderful thing about UMS is it kind of this is going to be a cloud-based software, so it covers, you know, the SaaS portion of our CIS software. It's going to include meter testing that we currently, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, that they're going to be doing some meter testing, both industrial and residential, to track accuracy of our meters. And they're a one-point stop where if we have any questions, concerns, issues, we will contact UMS. So UMS is going to be handling kind of all aspects of this project for us. The storage of the data from the meters, which is the MDM, the meters themselves, the CIS, the testing of the meters. So there will be a recurring recurring service fee with them once we get fully implemented throughout the life of our contract. And then I can get you the exact amount. I don't have it offhand, but I can get that to you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
There are other council members who would like to ask Mr. Freeman?
So UMS, who does the installation? Is that on UMS, or is there another company that we're working with? How does that work, Chris?
No, UMS manages the installation. They do everything, and they've committed to a 50% of local hire. So I don't like to use the word entry level when we talk about installation, but this is a good training ground for our Akron residents to, you know, it's typically on residential, you only have, you know, 1 inch and smaller piping. So it's, you know, it's not real technical, but it gives them a lot of hands-on, how to use the tools, the installation. There'll be some of the data collection software that will be. So doing the 50% of local hire, this project, we want to be very committed to not only the local hire portion of it, but also our minority requirements. They'll have to meet those also.
Okay. I'd heard somewhere along the line, maybe it's when we met last year, there was a AMI. Is that any connection with UMS or?
Yeah, AMI is the technology. AMI is Advanced Metering Infrastructure. So okay. That's just the acronym for, you know.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
From other committee members? Okay. There's a lot to digest here. There's a lot of important information, a lot of things to consider, and Mr. Little is okay if we take another week on this. So do I hear a motion to refer this to take time?
Move to take time.
Okay, and do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, and does everyone agree?
Aye.
Okay, I think we got all eyes on taking time. Okay, I'm gonna then adjourn the meeting and see you guys next week, and make sure you get your questions to Sarah, who will share them with all the committee members, and as well as the responses. And please, let's try to get the questions to him as soon as possible so he could get the answers to us by the end of the week. And we're not trying to do it all on Monday. Monday's going to be a very busy day as it is. So, with other issues. So thank you all for coming, and with that, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Our next committee will be the Rules Committee, which is Freeman, Fusco, Amobian, Connor, and Malik.
Are we live now?
We are.
Okay, very good. All right, we'll call the Rules Committee meeting to order, and if we could please have a roll call.
Freeman.
Aye.
Fusco.
Aye.
Amobian,
Aye.
Connor,
Aye.
Malik.
Aye.
All committee members are present.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we suspend all rules as pertains to in-person meeting and voting.
So move.
Second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, thank you. Also look for a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
So move.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 All right, very good. We have several items before us this morning, and what we're going to do before we read in the items, we're going to go ahead and have a presentation. Somebody's going to be sharing their screen with us. We'll listen through the presentation, and then we'll come through and we'll read in each item. So I will turn this over to, is Ms. Goodrich, are you going to be presenting for us, or who's going to be doing it?
I can start us off, Councilman.
Oh, okay, very good. I'm sorry, I didn't see you there.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So the pieces that are before you today, the first part of your agenda are all of the proposed amendments to the charter that came out of the 2020 Charter Review Commission. And to kind of start us off, Mayor Horgan's with us, so he'd like to share some remarks about kind of the process we went through to get to where we are today.
Well, good afternoon and thank you to the commission members that are on. Bill and Jim, I know this was a trying and a different time to be part of the commission, but I commend all of you for being part of this and helping lead some of that change. It's like I said, I think it was a little bit difficult at times just with we're used to meeting and getting through this, but you guys were able to get through it, I think, pretty well. And I previewed some of these, I think, a few months ago back when we talked about in the State of the City about transparency and accountability and how we do things better and not really being afraid to measure ourselves and say, hey, this is what we're doing, but this is how we want to change it. And all of these proposals before you promote those when it comes to diversity, equity, inclusion, giving more people an opportunity to be able to, whether it's buy for the city, work for the city, and each one of those, and Ellen and the law department really have led these efforts for the last year and a half of, I think, putting together some very thoughtful proposals to be able to change the charter. We only get this opportunity really on the commission side about once every 10 years. And I had not gone through it in 2000. I know some of you have, but these are well thought out to be able to offer those opportunities. And to really, good governance matters a lot to me and how we do things. And I know it matters a lot to you. So how we do things and these proposals and these changes, I think, go a long way to achieving those goals. So I ask for your thoughtful consideration. I look forward to your questions, and I will turn it back over to Ellen and go from there. So thanks. Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chairman Freeman. So before we get started on the PowerPoint, I just wanted to make sure that everyone did know who was here with us in the meeting today. So Bill Rich was the chair of the Charter Review Commission. You guys made those appointments several months ago. Jim Simon's with us as well. He was the vice chair. Of course, President Somerville sat on the commission as the council's representative. And it was a 9-member commission, bipartisan commission. They met starting in mid-May, did quick work because of the pandemic to go through a review of the entire charter over about 7 meetings, several hours at a time sometimes. So again, to reiterate the mayor's words, we really thank all the commission members for the service they did to the citizens of Akron. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint now. Can you guys see? Someone give me a nod.
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so the first section, and these go pretty much in the order of your agenda, so hopefully you guys can follow along, is regarding use of force recordings and procedures for the release of those recordings. And I believe that Chairman Bill Rich and Margot Somerville will be presenting on this piece. The proposed language of the new section is on your screen right now.
So what this charter provision would do.
To Bill Rich first.
Right. What this charter provision would do would be to give, if passed by the voters, of course, to give a mandate to the city council to enact legislation that would, with whatever exceptions the council sees fit to make, require prompt public disclosure of body cam as well as dash cam recordings I understand the police are currently not using dash cam. So at this point, it's really mainly about the body cam recordings that document the use of deadly force by a police officer against a person, and that's regardless of whether the person actually died or not. Or that documents the use of force by a police officer that causes serious bodily injury to a person, and that's regardless of whether the force is considered deadly force. Provided that the disclosure of the recording is permissible under both state and federal law. There are some limited situations in which either state or federal law doesn't allow the disclosure. You know, when that's the case, then of course the disclosure wouldn't be required. The deadline for council to enact this legislation is June 30th, 2021. So, you know, that would be, that would give the council, I think, plenty of time to fully consider the enactment of the legislation. So that's what that would do.
Okay, thank you so much. I just wanted to speak in favor of what Mr. Rich was just discussing. Some years back when council decided to vote to approve body cams, I think all of us as council was really excited about that because body cams really are a tool to help with transparency. It's also a tool that can help to make sure that our police officers are being held accountable and do have high standards. I think when we don't release body cam footage to the community, particularly when we're talking about cases where deadly use of force is used, it does not help us to build that trust, that public relation between community and police. So I do believe that what we're proposing to put on the ballot will definitely help with transparency. It'll help with accountability. I think this is a real opportunity for the city of Akron to lead in the area of being transparent. So I am in total support. I'm just hoping that we can also get support of all of our council members as well.
If I could just add to Councilman Freeman, I'm sorry, I didn't say, I think this will work easiest if we do questions in each section. So once we finish presenting on each section, if there's any questions about that section, which kind of goes along with each ordinance, that might be the easiest way to take questions.
So we
today.
can we'll just reserve our comments for when we actually read in the legislation.
No, I mean, like this is one section in and of itself. So this part that they just presented matches one ordinance. So if there's any questions about this section, I think we could take them now and then we can move along.
Okay, very good. Yeah, I would just add to, you know, agreeing with President Somerville, it's we're upfront and it's on both sides. It helps the citizens, helps the police as well. So look forward to passing this. It's all about.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
And I certainly support it. I believe it not only helps everybody and it reveals everything, it also allows us to look at where we may need training if we have areas where we're having problems. But I think in this environment, transparency is the way to go. And when you hide stuff from folks, that's when you get into all kinds of problems because people don't trust and don't believe what we're saying. So I think this will help the officers as well as the citizens to know that we're doing the best we can and that here's the tape, you can see it for yourself.
Absolutely, thank you. Any other questions regarding section 141A? We'll move on to our next piece, if that's permissible.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure, Councilman Swirsky, did I see you raise your hand?
Yeah, well, I just want to say, yeah, I think this is great. I really appreciate the work that and I'm sure it's very tedious and detailed work to provide accountability and responsibility. Make sure that that is always on the minds of everyone who serves the citizens of Akron in the police department. I really appreciate this, and I think that the people in my ward would strongly support such an action. There's going to be a lot of support for this when it goes to the ballot.
Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll move on to the next section. So this next section is fairly involved. So there are several different changes to several different charter sections that are all kind of under the umbrella of human resources. So presenting on that, we have Yamini Atkins and Tammy Khalil from the law department, who I think are off screen in one of these, and then Stacy Doty, who's our employment and selection manager in human resources department. We're going to be presenting.
I just wanted to say hello to all the council people, and wanted to thank Stacy Doty, who will be presenting. Can you hear us?
Hello. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay. Hello. So wanted to thank. I can't hear.
I couldn't hear anything you said. Did you say anything before this?
Yeah, I'm able to hear fine where I'm at. I'm not sure if anybody else is having problems.
No, I can hear fine too.
Okay.
I can't hear her.
Cannot hear? Is it
I can
Councilwoman
hear you
Mosley?
now. I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Don't know why we're having that issue here. So just wanted to thank the HR department also. Stacy Doty has done some extensive work on this, and she'll be presenting on the pieces before us right now that will be presented to the council for the ballot.
Thank you, Yamini. Again, I'm employment and selection manager for the city of Akron, and I've been with the city for 25 years. For most of my career here in HR, we were known as personnel and had very few changes in our process. But since 2016, when the voters changed the charter to create the Department of Human Resources, we've been moving forward and trying to create that robust human resources system. So when I first started, and for many years, we were in the civil service model where the civil service commissioners were appointed by the mayor, but they weren't involved in the day-to-day operations of the city. They were more focused just on hearings and making sure everyone followed the rules. They weren't at all concerned with the day-to-day operations of the city and helping managers get their jobs done. The commission appointed a personnel director who did not work for the mayor, but worked for the commission. And then the personnel department was siloed and everything was pretty transactional. We weren't working as business partner for the managers or the directors of the different departments. So because we didn't do that, there were different managers who might have chosen to do things different ways, and things were not consistent. So the charter changes passed in 2016 need to be further clarified. As we've been working to improve, we've recognized that we still have hurdles preventing us from accomplishing our goals. So the Department of Human Resources must have the full authority to carry out the functions expected of the Human Resources Department. So our goals are to align hiring and employment practices with peer cities in the state of Ohio. So many of the things we're proposing are already done by the state and many, many other cities, especially the large cities. We want to create more inclusive hiring practices, which will encourage more diverse applicants to apply. We want to establish competitive hiring practices to attract and retain the most qualified employees. And we hope to accomplish these goals all while preserving protections against political influence. And all these provisions are to support our efforts in that area. Some of the current challenges we have start with the preference points that are awarded to veterans and Akron residents. When those are fully implemented, they act as a deciding factor on who is hired or promoted, which can conflict with the principles of merit and fitness. So preference points, not merit, are the deciding factor. And when making a selection, the next thing is the top 3 candidates are the only candidates that can be considered for a position. So when we're going through our selection process, there's a civil service examination, and only the top 3 candidates get selected. So the people that are most the best at taking tests, not necessarily the best at performing a job. There are other factors that we should be considering. And the third one is the misalignment of responsibilities between Human Resources Director and the Civil Service Commission. So we want to clarify which is responsible for what processes, procedures, and responsibilities. One thing you'll see in all of our sections that we're covering today is we're updating terminology. All successful businesses and most government agencies have fully functioning human resources departments. We're proposing to update the language throughout the charter from civil service to human resources. The terminology of civil service is really the concept of merit and fitness. We're not the Department of Civil Service. However, we will continue to incorporate the principles of merit and fitness throughout all of our processes and practices. So a big one is the preference points we're going to look at today. Akron's current charter allows candidates to receive up to 40% in preference points for both hiring and promotion. So no other city grants preference points in this manner, and no other city that we can find anywhere grants preference points for promotions. Most municipalities award 5 points maximum for veterans or residents for entry-level positions. Again, we're not proposing to eliminate the credit for open positions. We're going to leave that. We just believe that once you're hired, your promotion should be based on merit and fitness only. In fact, 2 of the city's unions have done away with the preference points for promotional exams through their collective bargaining agreements. And another union negotiated a reduced percentage of 5% for preference points just for the promotional exams. So I'll just give you an example of how that affects a testing process or selection process. So if we have, let's say, accounts analyst 2 that we're hiring for, and we have 20 candidates, if candidate A scores 70%, that is the minimum passing. You have to at least score 70% to move on and to get any preference points at all. Candidate B scores a 93% on the exam. That's significantly higher, and you can tell that person really knows what we want them to know. But that candidate is neither a resident nor a veteran. All the other candidates score between 70 and 95%, with most scoring above 80%. No others are both residents and veterans, but a few of them are one or the other. So in our current system, you can only interview the top 3 candidates. Candidate A, who received the minimum passing score, will get 14 points, that's 70% of their 70% score, 20% of their 70% score, plus another 14 points for 20% of their passing score. Their total for their exam score will be 98, where that other candidate we saw was a 93. All the other candidates with varying scores with residency or veterans will score above that 93% score of candidate B. So candidate B will not even get an interview for this position, even though that person was the highest scoring candidate. We want to correct that and make it more appealing for people to apply so that they don't feel defeated starting from the beginning. So you can see what the changes are we're suggesting here in 106A. In addition, the Human Resources Department will determine the method of awarding and the number of points awarded to the qualified residents and veterans. So the preference points will be given the appropriate weight based on the skills, education, and qualifications for each position. We're hoping that balances fairly the skills and knowledge required, and also considering whether someone's a veteran or a resident. We're balancing that with the qualifications of the job.
Do we want to stop and ask if there are any questions on this before we move on to section 103?
I have a question, Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Malik?
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Doty and Ms. Atkins. So it seems that we are, I certainly understand the need to, update our processes and move from a rule of 3 to a rule of 10 and to change the way in which the preference points work. But I am concerned about removing the preference points for promotion entirely. It seems like state law has prevented us from having residency requirements, but particularly at a time when we're talking about in policing and in other things, making sure that we have residents who are involved with the work of the city. And I know that's a big focus that we all have. I'm concerned about why we wouldn't be interested in even having maybe a 5% preference for promotions for employees.
Well, I can say that the police union and the fire union have already bargained that out. They do not get any preference points for their examinations at this point because they've already bargained, and there's a lot of history there, but they, even if it were in the charter, they would not have to follow it.
So police and fire are, for promotions, are matters that are matters of mandatory bargaining with the unions. So those are discussions during the negotiation process that is made for promotional level.
And so what about for the other non-police and non-fire?
So for the other, there are for the non-bargaining individuals, which that's after we have 4 separate unions here in the city, after our CSPA, after our police, fire, and our AFSCME units. Basically the non-bargaining employees, we have found that no other cities are applying these type of credits for promotional level. So the commission has voted to remove that for promotional level only.
Great. In addition, that's something that type of thing hinders our recruitment efforts to try to bring people here. If you're looking at your career with the city, you see that you might have to trade off, things happen in someone's life and they don't want to be bound to live in the city necessarily. Most people want to, but there could be exceptions for reasons why someone has to move.
Thank you both for that explanation, and I'm sure there'll be time for discussion. I guess the one thing that I would say is that it seems like it would at least be appropriate to still retain the discretion within the HR department to offer those preferences and the flexibility. Right now, the change seems to would prohibit it entirely, and that does concern me. But thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Mr. Chair. Yes. My question has more to do with, I hope when you looked at these other cities and looked at their hiring practices, their employees are, that we have some way of seeing the impact of all of these things on making sure we can get a diverse workforce. Because part of the problem that we've had in Akron, and I think you have everywhere, when you start looking at testing, that's why a lot of these universities are either doing away with entrance exams and all that kind of stuff, because everybody doesn't test well. But you have to find other ways of trying to figure out whether people have the skills to do the job and how else can they demonstrate that. So what I'm trying to figure out, and I'm looking through all these papers here, and I'm trying to follow you as clearly as I can. We're going from giving 40, what is it, 40 points you said?
40% of their test score.
Okay. And we're going down to what?
It depends on the position. So certain positions would merit a higher percentage or number of points, and others, especially positions that require specialized skill and knowledge, maybe IT positions or accountants or things like that, would probably be lower percentage, like 5% or 5 points.
I mean, the goal would be to do an assessment, and that's what the HR department is there to do. And that's their job, is to really assess these job classifications to determine the appropriate allocation of credit for the other factors outside of the skills and abilities requirements, testing requirements.
And I have no problem with that, because I certainly don't want you to put an incompetent person or unskillful person in a position. But I want to make sure that we're not implementing screening mechanisms or assessment tools that are going to put us farther behind the 8 ball in terms of diversifying the staff. I looked at what we did with the police force, for instance. You know, for years we talked about raising the age, and we did, and we managed to get 1 or 2 African-American officers who are much older than whatever the age was at the time. So I'm just wondering if the impact of these points, taking the points away, will have on us diversifying our workforce, because I really want us to make sure that we continue to strive for that.
Well, we are also looking at recruiting people from outside of Akron. We can now recruit from targeted areas that may not be in Akron, but are more diverse than here, and bring people to Akron. That's our goal, to bring people to Akron and grow Akron. We've recently done better at doing that, bringing people from other areas, and we're continuing to work on that.
You know, if I could jump in here, the overall goal has always been to attract talent. I mean, that's been for the last 4 years, is how do we do that? And how do we not have a disincentive to it? So I think back to Councilman Malik's point of maybe retaining that portion of it, it's once you kind of get in and able to do that, the different assessment models, I'm sure there are dozens, if not, multiple dozens across different HR departments. How do you assess the best person for the job? But what we have found over the last 4.5 years, and I'm sure it's history, is that those points were prohibitive from really sometimes the best people getting the job. And so as they've negotiated some of those out of some of those contracts, as you know, and we're in a pretty stiff competition for talent with multiple organizations and multiple cities, I think, across the country. How do we attract talent? And having some of those options to be able to do it, I think, is the best foot forward on that. A lot of this assessment, and some of those will go back to policy and procedure about how we redo those. But even if you look at that last police class, that was a concerted effort over about 1.5 years of developing the right tests, having that test, coaching them through even before that, and getting a better number, not the best, and that'll be a continuous effort. But that's also a baseline. When it comes to HR, I mean, our HR department really is only about 3.5 years old, which is infantile when it comes to the history of a lot of HR departments, because we were disparate and I think kind of all over the city. But the goal obviously is to attract talent. And how do we do that? I think that remains to be seen. So I wanted to make sure that was part of the conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. I just want us to, as we look to cities, to try to get some merit to use, or whatever, a metric to use, I'm sorry. Absolutely. That we look at how diverse those cities are, and what were they able to do that? Because that's one of the complaints that we get all the time, is that we can't seem to get a job for the city of Akron. And
so some of, just to add to the both your points, actually.
And I realize.
Hello.
So actually, we need to keep moving. So I'm just going to say one more thing and then we're going to move on. But I think what time has shown us with the current way the system is that preference points do not act as necessarily an incentive for people to move into the city or stay into the city. What they are is a reward, or a way to, basically reward our residents who are already here and get them a foot in the door. So that's why it makes sense to keep them in a entry-level position, to say, we want to give you as much opportunity as possible, Akron residents, to get into the city. But then once you're in the city, it's your on-the-job performance that should really be dictating who gets promoted. And so many of our workers choose to live in the city because we've made it, and we continue to make it a great place to live. We have other incentives like tax abatement and things that we offer to try to incentivize people to stay here, but preference points don't really work that way. If anything, it's a disincentive for people who do have other circumstances to leave the city of Akron employment, who may be people who are a very valuable asset to our community and to our taxpayers. So I think we should probably move on if you guys want to start on the next section.
Section 103, here again, we are updating terminology. We are changing the title of the Civil Service Commission to Human Resources Commission. That will serve as the city's Civil Service Commission, and the Human Resources Department administers the city's civil service provisions. And it's similar to the state, the way they're set up. Also in here, we're changing the standard for removal of a commissioner to be just cause, and that's common language. Section 103A, this is where we are delineating the powers and duties of the commission. It clarifies what matters may be appealed to the commission, and it also states the powers and duties of the commission. Right now, those are all spread out through the charter. So previously, if you wanted to find out what the Civil Service Commission does, you'd have to read through the whole thing and find out what their duties are. Here, with what we've done, we're clarifying the role of the commission. Any questions on that last section? There's section 106. It's the Department of Human Resources Policies and Procedures. We're renaming it from the director because there's already a section that covers that. But this section, there are a lot of changes, so we're going to have to break it down in a number of slides. We're showing the policies and procedures, which are the framework for what we're doing in HR. This slide here shows basically we're renaming and clarifying that we're testing for the merit and fitness of applicants. We're also in number 3, here's another thing that's common with the state and other cities. We're providing for non-competitive testing where the director can determine which positions are non-competitive. We're still going to test the merit and fitness of the applicants, but it's not going to be a ranked list. And these positions would only be for specific requirements such as a scientific, a managerial, or advanced professional position where it's not practical to give a civil service test. It's more practical to look at the person's entire employment history, their interview, and what other qualifications they bring to the position. This slide, the most significant thing here is section 6B. We're just clarifying that the Human Resources Department can declare the methods of granting preference points to the passing grades of those people taking non-promotional exams. There's a lot of cross off here, but that language was pre the section 106A that we discussed earlier, and those are no longer necessary. Section 106, this number 7, that's important for us. This is expanding the pool who are going to be able to be considered for a position to 10 candidates. Currently it's 3. We think that expanding the selection to 10 candidates will allow the managers and whoever's making the selection to consider other factors like past performance, their interview, their certifications. If they worked for us before, maybe as a seasonal or temporary employee, and they did a good job, maybe they're not the best test taker, but they'll have an opportunity, more of an opportunity. So we think this is more inclusive and will help us with recruitment and making sure we get a good fit for the position. Again, that's common in many other cities and for the state as well. Number 10, we're also talking about provisional emergency appointments. That's new. It's basically for emergency only. It's provisional as a temporary appointment. Okay. This section, the most significant change here is that we're eliminating the maximum of 6 months for a probationary period. There are many positions where it takes longer than 6 months to determine if the person can perform the job duties. Sometimes it's because things happen only once a year, or sometimes like police and fire, we have a long academy and then a lot of training needs to be done before we know if the person can actually perform the job. So 6 months is not enough time for a lot of positions, and we'll determine those lengths. Proposed changes for section 108. This is again for appointments. This is another section that covers the certification rule, or that's certification is when we send people to interview. We're making sure we want to expand that pool to 10. The certification of payroll, we're just changing the certification of payroll from the commission to the Director of Human Resources, because it is the Director of Human Resources and his staff or her staff who actually review and confirm the payroll. For investigations, section 111, the Civil Service Commission right now has the authority to issue subpoenas, but We do want to expand that to the Department of Human Resources for pre-employment investigations. We don't get much information unless we have a subpoena, and that's very important for safety sensitive positions. And we also need to subpoena for investigations into possible employee misconduct. Section 114, the salaries. We're just changing the terminology in this one, pretty simple. Section 71, the removal of division heads. We're updating the title to be chiefs instead of heads. We thought that sounded better. And we're updating the terminology here and showing that the chiefs will have the right to appeal to the Human Resources Commission, so they'll get their due process.
I just want to say that my proposal was to change that title to Off with Their Heads.
Proposed section Charter 72, we're updating the language again for the pre-disciplinary process and the appeal of disciplinary actions for employees of the Police and Fire Division that's specific to them. This section predates modern labor laws regarding due process hearings. In 116, we're doing the same for the general and classified employee, still just talking about the due process hearings. And that's all I have for you.
All right, were there any other questions on the HR sections before we moved on to the next part of the presentation?
I apologize, I can't see the screen very well with screen share, but I can see that Councilman McKittrick used the raised hand function. Mr. McKittrick, did you still have a question?
No, that was some ways back. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Mr. Moby, and I apologize to everyone. In this mode, it's tough to see everyone at one time.
Oh, that's okay. My question is, the probationary period, could you explain or all positions of what we're talking about?
I'm sorry, I could not hear the question.
I'm sorry, probation.
Yeah.
The probationary period. Are you talking about all positions? Some positions going to be beyond 6 months?
No, not all positions. Most positions will be 6 months, but there are other positions, specifically, like I said, the safety forces, the safety communications or 911 operators. That takes a lot of training, and 6 months is nowhere near long enough to determine if the person's catching on. And sometimes we'd have to terminate because we really weren't sure, and they weren't up to speed. They weren't getting up to speed. So we want to give them more time. And police and fire, most of those, there could be some other ones, maybe management positions might need additional time because it takes a while to determine if they're going to be successful.
So what are you thinking about?
No, usually for a management position, maybe a year. That's fairly standard. For safety communications, a year. Police and fire, probably a year after their academy.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. I can see that Councilman Malik's hand is raised.
Councilman Malik?
Thank you. I had two main questions here. I think in section 106 and section 108, they each refer to emergency appointments and then temporary appointments. What are the circumstances in which these would be used, and should there be some kind of limitation on the amount of time that these could be used for?
For the emergency appointments, the provisional emergency, that is really, I mean, I don't have a recommended amount of time. It's usually during the emergency. For instance, with this COVID-19, if things get really bad and it continues to be bad, we don't know how long that's going to be, how long it's going to last. So if we appointed a special health person, we don't want to have to, find someone else to appoint halfway through because there's a time limit.
Okay, and then there was also another question about, in a number of the sections, I think we talked about some of them, but I think 71, 72, and then 116, there are time limits for when hearings will occur after adverse employment decisions. And I think that 30 days is being eliminated, I think largely because the Civil Service Commission, didn't meet every 30 days, and that's just to align it with current practice. But if it's going to be 45 days or 60 days or 90 days, would it be appropriate to put that altered time frame? What is the altered time frame intended to be, and should it be put in the charter?
Oh, you want to answer?
No, you go ahead.
That is actually in the Civil Service Administrative Rules, so that's spelled out. That's already done. So I don't know that it has to be in the charter because it's a formal process to approve the rules, and there's a public hearing for that as well, for any rule changes.
Okay. And then one last question. I think in the section about investigations, I think it said that the powers, would be added to, I think section 111, right? The powers added to the mayor, the HR department. But it seems like the way it's written that the commission would no longer have subpoena power. Is that correct?
They have in their section, the new section that we talked about, 103, let's see, 103A.
Okay, so it's just consolidated.
It's just all moved under the commission section. Everything that deals with the commission is under that one section.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions or comments that I might be missing here? Speak. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Chairman. So the next section deals with purchasing, and that's section 95 of our charter. And I know we have Shelley Goodrich, our Deputy Finance Director, and I believe Sean Bowman from the Law Department is also with us to provide a presentation on those sections.
Yep. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So we can go to the first slide, Ellen. So as you all know, I've done a deep dive into our purchasing process since I joined the city of Akron. And through that, we determined that not only our charter needs to be updated, but we also need to update some ordinances, which will be coming to you all in the future with those. But really this is the beginning of the work that we're doing to be more inclusive and to kind of streamline our purchasing processes. So this slide right here just shows that we're making some minor changes to defining the purchasing agent's role and specifying that the purchasing agent's responsible for procuring material, equipment, supplies, and non-professional services required by the various departments. It also goes on in the next section to state that the purchasing agent will dispose of materials and dispose of stuff that the department wants to get rid of in consultation with the department. And we're making this section gender neutral. So those are some additional changes as well. All right, Ellen, next one. The main changes that we have, though, is that the purchasing agent is going to be responsible to develop, in conjunction with the Director of Finance and myself, the Deputy Director of Finance, a small dollar purchasing policy to enhance opportunities for participation by certified entities in competitive procurements. So we're going to be working towards that goal. I have studied other cities and what they have put in place, and that's something that we definitely need to develop to be more diverse in our spend. The other change that we're looking at is increasing the amount of city council approval to 50,000 and board of control to 15,000. So currently right now, anything that is in excess of 5,000 has to go to board of control. Anything in excess of 15,000 has to go to city council. And those dollar thresholds are very low when we looked at other municipalities. When we're talking about the charter, anything currently in excess of 15,000 has to go by competitive sealed bidding, which is extremely burdensome. It's extremely expensive, and it kind of it's not inclusive. A lot of our minority businesses have found it to be very difficult to comply with and to follow all of the set rules. So by increasing council's threshold to 50,000, that will also be the new threshold for competitive bidding. As you can see, other cities with a threshold of 50,000 or above are the city of Cuyahoga Falls, our neighbor, and they rely on a an Ohio revised code provision that was updated back in 2012. So Ohio updated their revised code section 73505 in 2012 to 50,000. The city of Columbus, city of Canton, and city of Cincinnati, and these are just a few. Most cities are you know, at that amount or above. So Akron's low dollar thresholds create a heavy administrative burden, as most purchases are required to go through the competitive sealed bidding process. It's a more expensive process. It's more legalistic and more difficult for our small, diverse local businesses to compete for jobs. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sean, who's going to speak on the public advertisement section of our suggested changes.
Yes, hi, it's Sean Bowman of the City Law Department. I guess on my phone, I can't see the print on my phone is too small to see the slides. So I'm just gonna, I guess, generally talk about public advertisement, and hopefully what I say is actually reflected on those slides. But what we're looking at generally when we do the competitive sealed bidding process that Shelley talked about, our charter requires us to publish in what they call a newspaper of general circulation 2 consecutive weeks. That has become, that is an expensive procedure, and it's not one that follows, you know, changes with technology. So we are proposing, I believe the number was about an average of $191,000 and some odd dollars per year that we spent on advertising these sorts of projects. What we're proposing to do is that we would put the notice of the bid on the city's website for 2 consecutive weeks. And we think that is beneficial in a number of reasons. One is obviously the money. 2 would be that I guess the other change would be that we would also be able to take advantage of whatever future technology for public advertisement that the state approves. It's a secondary function of what we're looking at, so that in 20 years, whatever that technology may be, or if the state approves it, that we would not have to go back to the voters to change to the current form of advertising. Other cities, including what I looked at in Cleveland and Cincinnati and Dublin, provide for publication on their website as a way to publicize for projects and bids.
Just building on what Sean said, you know, looking at everything through that inclusion lens, that's the lowest barrier way to let people know about bidding opportunities, right? So you don't have to subscribe to the Beacon. Anyone can access our website. We can set people up for alerts. We can create a social media page. We have a lot of options this way to try to reach the broadest possible audience of companies who are interested in doing business with us.
Correct. And with the implementation of Workday, all of our vendors will register for their commodity codes, and all quoting or bidding opportunities will automatically be sent to all vendors so that everyone can have an opportunity to electronically get notification and compete on those opportunities.
That's
Are there any
great.
questions about this section before we move on?
I see that Councilwoman Amobian's hand is raised.
Linda? Ms. Amobian.
Oh, yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. My only question is, one of the things we've talked about is that some people just don't have technology. So are we going to continue to advertise in a major newspaper? I'm thinking about, you know, if we can't advertise for 2 weeks in the Beacon, what about the Reporter? I know we advertise there.
We're going to continue. Yeah, we're going to continue with the Reporter. The Reporter is much more cost effective. I think it's $25 for each ad. So we will continue. We did make that decision in consultation with the mayor that obviously it is very important to reach that demographic and try and get our minority population to compete on our opportunities. So we will continue to pay and publish in the Reporter.
Thank you.
Yeah, this change would not prevent us from publishing in newspapers of general circulation. It just gives us additional options that you know, are available to us.
Sure. Thank you.
Ms. Connor.
I know the city website can sometimes be cumbersome. Would public advertisements just basically have its own page? So it's like a one click and get the information?
Yes, yes. I mean, we definitely need to streamline the current process, which will be also more streamlined once we go to Workday as well, so that all of our vendors, the public opportunities will be on our website. It'll be a cleaner one-stop shop page, as well as any vendor registered with the city of Akron will be electronically notified as we post those opportunities. But if a vendor was not registered with us, they could go to this webpage to look for any opportunities. But yes, it will be much cleaner than it currently is.
Also, the way that it's written, it's a City of Akron website, so we could conceivably create a separate website that's much more user-friendly and link to it from our main page, and again from Facebook and all these places. So it doesn't have to be akronohio.gov. If for any reason that site is reconstructed or anything, it just has to be an official City of Akron page that contains this information that we would promote.
Thank you.
Is there a possibility that you're saying $191,000? Is there a possibility that in the beginning we can take some of that money and kind of blast the public and say, hey, here's the new way that you do business with Akron? Is that in the train of thought anywhere?
Absolutely. Given our current, obviously with the last 4 months about what's going on, but yeah, we definitely need to communicate like, hey, this is a new way to do things. It's not necessarily coming down on a Wednesday at 10 o'clock in the afternoon to open a piece of paper. Yeah, we're definitely going to communicate a lot better with a lot of groups too. There are a significant number of groups that we need to reach out to too. So we can take some of that and kind of put a small marketing effort together to make sure that they have those opportunities and that they know where to find them.
Excellent. Any other questions or comments? Ms. Amobian, did you have your hand up?
No, that was before. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Okay.
Okay, our next section relates to procedures of city council. And I believe President Somerville is going to quickly take us through these.
Hey, thank you so much, Ellen.
And if you can't see these, can you see these on your screen? I'm happy to jump in.
I got them. Okay. Thank you so much. So the first proposed change, as all council members already know, is really trying to just update our charter. All council members already know that when we decide that we need to have a special meeting, our clerk, Bob Keith, gets in his car and he has to drive around and hand deliver notices about the special meeting to each and every council person. And so what we want to do, of course, we want to update that, use technology, and be able to send a simple email to all council members informing them about special meetings. The other proposed change, council, in our council rule currently, whenever we want to hold a special meeting, it only takes 2 council members to basically hold a special meeting. Again, for consistency purposes, as council conducts business, it's always the majority. So that is the proposed change too. When we are looking to hold a special meeting, instead of 2 council members to hold a special meeting, the majority. And Ellen, I know that you're changing our screen here, so okay. All right, and the third proposed change, as it relates to record and publications of ordinance and other matters, again, we saw this as a cost-saving measure for city council. There are many newspapers and circulations and publications that Sarah and Holly send information to. Many of these publications are extremely expensive. And again, wanting to move forward with using technology so that we too can put information up on a city website, whether that's council, whether that's that same website that Ellen was talking about, where everybody could go to get information. And Ellen, I don't know if you have anything in addition to that.
No, it's the same concept, and we're trying to follow that same new process, as we just talked about, for bidding opportunities, to just give us the flexibility to publish that online. And then I can take over here if you'd like, President. These are pretty legal matters, changes to the charter. So there were some clarifications and cleanup that we were suggesting in the charter related to executive sessions, open meetings, and the way that you guys conduct business by video or teleconference. Because actually, while the state has blessed what you're doing now, which is meeting on Zoom, our charter still actually says that you guys will meet in person. So these changes really just, again, mirror state law. We're just updating it to what the state allows and making it clear that our charter also authorizes what the state authorizes.
The changes the state made, are those going to be permanent?
They are not right now, but of course, I think they last until the end of the state of emergency, which of course is unknown. So I would not be surprised if there was, an extended concern about the coronavirus, that you wouldn't see something more permanent. And also, I think both public bodies like yourself and the public are getting used to this option and this model for conducting public business. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it become a permanent change.
Okay.
Any other
question? Yes, Mr. Malik, I see your hand.
Yeah, just one comment. I think with regard to special meetings, I know that we have our
Mr. Chair.
goes by the majority of members, but I think and 2 members calling a special meeting is very small. But I think it is important to protect minority viewpoints. So perhaps maybe 4 or 5 members would be sufficient. It's just an idea, though, upon first reading it.
Thank you, Mr. Obian.
Yes, and that was exactly my point. We have the 2 members calling a special meeting, and I've been on council 10, 11 years. This has not been abused. And I think, as Councilman Malik said, we have to preserve, because I think it's more progressive that we not put the onus on a few members of council who may want to call a special meeting so that we can discuss an issue. And again, I can probably count on one hand and have fingers left over the number of special meetings that have been called by 2 people. But I think it is important. And I did check, school board, it takes 2 persons other than the president or the treasurer to call a special meeting. And even county council, I think it takes 5 members or something. So anything less than majority, I think, would be fair to make sure we're preserving the voices of the minority. Thank you.
Is there a standard, as we've looked across, the state or the city, does there tend to be a standard for how many members it takes to call for a special meeting? Anyone?
I'm not so sure.
I only know about
there's a standard. I mean, I think what we were thinking about was just making things consistent, across the board in terms of council rules and how we conduct business, and majority of how we do, it's the majority. I think that was more so the thought process.
Okay.
But we can look into it for sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we'll move along. Thank you.
Hey, you'll be happy to know this is our last section for the charter changes. And I believe that Chairman Rich will be presenting on this, as it primarily relates to one of the other hats that he wears, which is the Board of Elections. So,
Mr. Rich.
Hang on, had to unmute myself. So I think you're at this point all familiar with the problem that has been created in various respects by the federal law concerning voting by military and overseas voters, which requires that the Board of Elections start sending out ballots 45 days before the election day, which is a little more than a couple of weeks before early in-person voting starts. And so the idea here is to move up the deadline for charter amendments that are being advanced through citizen initiatives petitions to 100 days instead of 60 days, which would allow the council time to act as they're required to act, and before that, the clerk to refer the petition to the Board of Elections to determine the number of valid signatures, so that the clerk can determine whether the petition is valid. And then after the council acts, enough time for the Board of Elections to prepare the ballot in time for the UOCAVA deadline, the deadline for sending out ballots to overseas and military voters.
So as I understand it, we're just kind of coming full circle and completing what council initiated here a year or so ago. Is that correct?
Well, this is a little different from that, but it's the same idea, right? This is something that couldn't be done without a charter amendment. And so there were some other things the council has already done to accommodate this deadline, but this is something else that needed to be done.
Any questions? Questions or comments?
I think Mr. Chair, he's only asking us to act on any potential referendum or whatever voting issue, just act on it quicker so it get to the board sooner. Is that what you're asking, Mr. Rich?
This would make the deadline earlier for the submission of the petitions to the clerk, right, so that the council could act on it earlier.
Okay, and then the veterans or military personnel can get it sooner. Is that what we're thinking too?
Yeah, it's not veterans, but military and overseas voters.
Yeah, military.
People who are currently in the military.
Right, I'm sorry, yeah. Thank you.
So for an example, as it currently stands, someone could turn in petitions to get a charter amendment, or council could originate an ordinance to do the same thing in late August or even the first week of September, because that's before the 60-day deadline. But at that point, the Board of Elections would have already been very far along in their process of creating those ballots. So it was in the same problem we had with the primary, that we have to move that deadline for having council consider and pass those ordinances up in order for the Board of Elections to be aware of those issues in time to get them onto the ballots.
Yeah, the 60-day deadline is for the submission of the petition to the clerk. So if somebody does submit it 60 days before the election, the clerk then has to send it to the Board of Elections for the Board of Elections to determine how many signatures are valid. And then the clerk certifies the petition as valid, and then the council has to enact an ordinance to put it on the ballot. So, we're talking about something that comes to the Board of Elections, 50, 45 days even before the election, and 45 days is when we have to start sending out the ballots.
Actually not quite correct. The state constitution has the deadline for council passing the ordinances as 60 days. But at times the passed ordinance doesn't get to the board for several days.
Right.
And so, the 60-day deadline is for council to pass it. And we cannot change that through the charter. That is in the Ohio Constitution. But what we can change is the deadline for having those ordinances and petitions submitted to council, in the hopes that council will act upon them immediately and give the Board of Elections that time.
Mr. Fusco? Yeah. Mute, Mr. Fusco.
Thank you, Chairman. Isn't it typically 90 days before an election is the deadline? And I don't know how this would, if it would, in fact, could be, because obviously I know those petitions got to be certified as well, typically. So I don't know if it's 90 days, but this says 100. I don't know if it's I'm trying to, you know, cut it too close or if it really makes a difference, but just a question.
Well, first of all, the additional 10 days between 90 and 100 days does give some time to the city council. But secondly, the Ohio Supreme Court has actually asked the Ohio Association of Election Officials and the legislature to consider putting forward a constitutional amendment that would change that 90-day deadline to 100 days because right now there is very little time for the court to consider an action for writ of mandamus when somebody's challenging the decision of the Board of Elections about who or what to put on the ballot. And so what this does is it anticipates a change that I think will occur at some point. I'm not saying tomorrow at the statewide level.
Thank you, Mr. Rich. Thanks, Chairman.
Other questions or comments?
Yeah, before we wrap, but I know you're wrapping up and want to get moving. I just want to take the time again to thank Bill and Jim for leading the commission. And Margot, like I said, these are all very well thought out proposals. And it's a lot to take in a day. So thanks again. I appreciate all the hard work going into this. So thanks.
Okay, thank you. Thanks so much, everyone. I think we're going to jump back now and we're going to read in everything that we have just heard from. Was there anything else that anybody had to add?
I could just only add that if there were any questions throughout the week, that feel free to email me and I'll try to get them to the right people and get answers to council and the committee as soon as possible.
Okay. Very good.
I would add that I would be happy to talk with anyone who has questions. I may or may not be the right person to talk to, depending on what the question is, but I'm available.
So flood Bill Rich's email is what we're saying.
That wasn't exactly what I meant, but.
Okay, very good. Okay, we're going to go ahead and read in our first piece here. This is an ordinance authorizing and directing the submission to the electors of the city of Akron of a proposal to adopt section 141A of the charter of the city of Akron to be voted upon at the next general citywide election on November 3rd, 2020, and declaring an emergency. And if I can get a motion from someone to refer this item.
I'd like to make a motion, we refer.
I'll second.
We have a motion, a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right. Second item is an ordinance authorizing, directing the submission to the electors of the city of Akron of a proposal to amend and supplement sections 71, 72, 103, 106, 108, 110, 111, 114, and 116 of the charter of the city of Akron, and to adopt the new section 103A to be voted upon at the next general citywide election on November 3rd, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Make a motion to refer.
I have a motion to refer.
Second.
And a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Like sign. All right. The third piece is an ordinance authorizing and directing the submission to the electors of the city of Akron of a proposal to amend and supplement section 95 of the charter of the city of Akron to be voted upon at the next general citywide election on November 3rd, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Refer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item number 4, this would be an ordinance authorizing and directing the submission to the electors of the city of Akron of a proposal to amend and supplement section 106A of the charter of the city of Akron to be voted upon at the next general citywide election on November 3rd, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Motion to refer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign. Item number 5, an ordinance authorizing, I didn't skip one there, did I, Sarah? Okay. Ordinance authorizing and directing the submission to the electors of the city of Akron of a proposal to amend and supplement section 33, 38, and 141 of the charter of the city of Akron to be voted upon at the next general citywide election on November 3rd, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Refer.
We have a motion to refer in a second.
Second.
All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Item number 6 is an ordinance authorizing and directing the submission to the electors of the city of Akron of a proposal to amend and supplement section 17, 19, and 136 of the charter of the city of Akron to be voted upon at the next general citywide election on November 3rd, 2020, and declaring an emergency.
Refer.
We have a motion to refer. We have a motion and a second. Did I hear a second?
Yes, second.
Oh, yes, a second by Councilman Malik. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, like sign. Then number 7, we have a resolution urging the city of Akron to formally recognize June 19th, 2021, and every June 19th thereafter as Juneteenth Independence Day in recognition of June 19th, 1865, the date on which slavery legally became to an end in the United States, and declaring an emergency. And I believe this was presented by Miss Mosley Samples. Do we have her with us?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay, there we go. I'm sorry, Tara, I didn't see you.
That's
Would
okay.
you like to present, please?
Yes, thank you. This resolution is for the city of Akron to formally recognize June 19th as Juneteenth Independence Day here in the city of Akron, and to recognize it every year thereafter. We have several Juneteenth celebrations throughout the city of Akron. We have for many years. There's never formally been a day that we here in the city of Akron recognize specifically for that and for the ending of slavery. I like to take a week just so council can read over it, really digest it, and maybe want to do their own research of why this date is so important to the African-American community, and hopefully we could have a vote on it next week before we break for summer.
Very good. Any other questions or comments? I always remember what day the Emancipation Proclamation was signed on, September 22nd. My birthday, so. All right, you've requested a week, correct?
I'm sorry, Mike, my dog is barking. What did you say?
You did request a week?
Yes, a week, please.
Okay. The motion to,
Motion for time.
okay, and a second? Okay,
Second.
very good. All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
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 Opposed, like sign? Okay, thank you for offering that, Ms. Samples. And I believe that would conclude all of our business. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, very good. We will adjourn, and thank you so much.